if someone wants to learn more about Kierkegaard, what are some of the best books or kind of articles or places they can find to learn more about Kierkegaard?
Yeah. So I'll give a couple suggestions that hit different levels and different ways of thinking about it. So if you want to get a introduction, I think is the best philosophical introduction to Kierkegaard by a really serious Kierkegaard scholar trying to write for a slightly broader audience, but it's still a pretty technical book. So I think it's the book I use when I teach Kierkegaard to students in a Kierkegaard seminar. This is like the first thing we read, right? But it's not something that I just recommend at book clubs. But it's simply called Kierkegaard by Jamie Ferreira. Jamie Ferreira's book, Kierkegaard. It's short. It is compact. It is unbelievably compelling. Excellent, excellent book. It is probably still one that people who've studied a little bit of philosophy, that would be very helpful to kind of navigate a lot of what she's doing. If you want a book that is a little bit more directed toward Christian living, a little bit more accessible, also written by an amazing scholar, but written to a particularly Christian audience, I would recommend Mark Tetchen's book on Kierkegaard. The title I'm actually blanking on right this second, but it is also very short, very accessible. Tetjein. So Tetjen has this amazing book. I've used it also in classes, but I've used it in classes, for example, where I had broader community members taking the class, not just philosophy majors. So that one has a little bit more accessibility, a little bit more specifically Christian focus. If you wanted a biography on Kierkegaard, I'd recommend the biography that came out a couple years ago by Claire Carlisle. They're in the UK. Amazing biography on Kierkegaard. Sold really well, got a lot of press, a lot of traction, but it's also beautifully written. And so that book, if you want more of the biography and kind of expanded story of who he was, that's a really good one. And then if you want to read about Kierkegaard in relation to his time, you're more of like historian approaching Kierkegaard, I'd recommend the book simply called Kierkegaard in Golden Age Denmark, which is a fascinating book that talks about the way in which the history of Denmark and the politics and the religious structures create a particular setting that then allows Kierkegaard to be who he ends up becoming.
If you've been enjoying this video so far and have found it helpful, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. If you want to support this channel financially and support our mission, then check out our Patreon in the link below, where you can support our channel there as well. Hope you enjoyed this video, and let's carry on.
Now, if you want not to read a book, you want to go for a jog and think a little bit about Kierkegaard, I've actually given quite a few podcast interviews similar to this, but that were focused in particular on sort of Kierkegaard for the church, or why we need to read Kierkegaard today, where I tried to not necessarily speak to a philosophical audience like I've tried to do in this one, right? Since you're intentionally making philosophy content.
Yeah.
I've done some that were more to, again, just kind of broader religion podcasts and even podcasts just talking about kind of contemporary living and stuff. Those are accessible via my website, again, jaaaronsimmons.com. I've got links to those. So it's podcasts such as You Have Permission and Rethinking Faith and the Young Evangelicals and Homebrewed Christianity, things like that. So I think those would be great resources. And otherwise, sign up for my email newsletter there on my website and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, because once my book, Camping with Kierkegaard, comes out, that will be a different kind of invitation into Kierkegaard. It's not an introduction to his thought. It's not even a book about his philosophy. It's an attempt instead to kind of think about what would it look like to live Kierkegaardianly on purpose, in our world, on our jobs, doing what we love to do. So it's a book that is a different take on thinking about Kierkegaard. It's more like thinking with him at the campsite instead of, trying to make sense of his ideas. It's really more like putting his ideas into practice in maybe ways that are compelling to all of us wherever we find ourselves. So maybe those are some